We're plunging into a topic that honestly impacts pretty much all of us. Building wealth and, planning for the future. It can feel really complex sometimes, right? But our mission today is kind of to simplify it. Cut through the noise, zero in on what you can actually use. We've got some really interesting material here. Excerpts from a plan called Building Wealth, a 20-year annuity plan. And it lays out this fascinating challenge, really a financial journey. How do you take an initial investment, keep adding to it, and, well, turn that into a pretty substantial annuity over 2 decades? So for this deep dive, we're going to unpack a very specific scenario from the source, starting with $10,000, then adding $500 every single month. And the goal, reaching a projected $290,000 annuity within 20 years. That's quite a vision for long-term growth. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, and what's really illuminating here isn't just the big number at the end. It's how clearly it shows that long-term financial goals, even really big ones, can become, well, remarkably achievable when you break them down, when you understand the mechanics behind it. It's not magic, like you said. It's more like financial physics.
Financial physics, I like that. Okay, so let's really zoom in on those numbers. They're the blueprint, right? You start with $10,000. That's your launch pad, kind of your initial spark, gives you some momentum.
Right, a solid start.
Then the consistent action, $500 every month.
Yeah.
That's the steady fuel, keeps the engine running.
The commitment part.
Exactly. And then the target, $290,000 after 20 years, specifically for an annuity.
And that's a really important distinction, isn't it? The annuity part. For anyone less familiar, an annuity isn't just a pile of cash you spend. It's typically a financial product you buy with that lump sum. And then it gives you a reliable, usually fixed stream of income, often for life.
Okay, got it. So the goal is building the capital to create that future income.
Precisely. And this plan, it really highlights the powerful combination of, that initial capital boost and then the regular discipline saving. A lot of people focus on the $10,000 thinking that's the main thing. But what's often missed and what this plan kind of shows is how those steady $500 monthly contributions made faithfully over 2 decades, they can actually end up contributing more overall than the initial 10 grand.
Really? More than the starting amount?
Potentially, yes, over the full 20 years. It shifts the focus. It's less about needing a huge amount to start and more about needing that consistency, that steady effort month after month. That's the real workhorse here.
That's a great way to put it. The steady drip becoming bigger than the initial splash. Okay, but here's where it gets, well, really interesting and maybe a bit of an eye-opener. Our source material tells us that to actually hit that $290,000 target with those inputs, you need an estimated average annual return of somewhere between like 7.5% and 25%. That's a massive range, isn't it?
It absolutely is a huge range. And it's not just about risk, though that's definitely part of the picture. It really highlights how critical it is to understand what kind of investment journey you're actually signing up for. It's about matching your, let's say, investment philosophy and how engaged you want to be with the outcome you're aiming for.
Okay, so what does that look like? 7.5 versus 25.
Right. Let's break that down a bit.
Yeah.
On the lower end, say averaging 7.5% a year, this usually points towards a more diversified portfolio, maybe something you could, set and forget to some extent. You might be looking at broad market index funds, maybe a mix of stocks and bonds, or perhaps stable companies that pay dividends. The strategy here is more about consistent moderate growth, less volatility. It's probably what many would see as a sensible long-term approach if you don't want the emotional roller coaster or spend tons of time managing it. Pretty achievable for most people using passive investment.
Right, sort of like putting it on cruise control. So what about the other end? That 25%, that sounds intense.
Intense is a good word. Cruise control fits the lower end well. But aiming for an average of 25% a year, every year for 2 decades, that's a completely different ballgame. That's not your typical index fund return. Not even close, usually.
Okay.
Getting that kind of high growth consistently, it often demands taking on significantly more risk. It usually requires much more active management, a lot of skill, deep research, and maybe, frankly, a bit of luck, too.
So what kind of things are we talking about there?
Well, potentially things like investing in really aggressive growth stocks, focusing on niche sectors with high potential, maybe even alternative investments like venture capital, though, just to be clear, venture capital usually means funding early-stage private companies. For the average person putting in $500 a month, getting into VC directly is, well, tricky. It usually requires special access and a very, very high tolerance for risk since, many startups just fail.
Right.
So the point is, aiming for that